Hello and welcome back to the channel everyone. Revisions are an important part of our study. Especially when we are going through exams, revisions are a thing to master. It is basically an art that needs to be learned. Many times we fail to understand and we are unaware about how and what the revisions are and how to approach a revision for a specific subject or a specific topic. We end up following some general rules for every subject and everything that we do that ends up wasting a lot of time and our knowledge not getting transformed into memory. We need to learn those scientific methods that have been proven as revision strategies for learning and memorizing more and more stuff. We have to remember, guys, that learning is not about putting things or stuff into your brain, but it is about taking the stuff out of your brain. It's a skill and it has some scientific principles to follow. And for that, we need to understand our memory and how it works. Today, we are going to learn about the S.A.A.D revision strategy. S for spaced repetition, A for active recall, A for association, and D for desirable difficulty. So let's start with the first one, spaced repetition. Spaced repetition is revisiting information at a given point of time so as to combat the forgetting curve of human memory. What is this forgetting curve of human memory? For that, we need to understand, guys, that whenever we are studying or working on anything, there are these two components of our memory. One is the working memory and the other one is the long-term memory. We need to shift the things from the working memory or short-term memory into our long-term memory, and it requires certain process. And spaced repetitions, they help us in moving our information from the working memory into the long-term memory. Hermann Ebbinghaus is called as the father of memory. He was the person who was interested in knowing how the brain retains information. So he used to do a lot of experimentation. And during these experimentation, he also discovered the forgetting curve. What is the forgetting curve? Memory decays exponentially if we don't repeat it within 7 days of what we have learned. You will not be able to recall if you haven't revised it within 7 days of your learning. And here is where the concept of spaced repetition, which has been scientifically proven, comes into play. So if you space and divide your repetitions and revise everything for 5 minutes of whatever you have learned, and the memory, it enhances on that topic. Suppose you have learned something on day 0. Then after 1 day, your graph of memory falls down to 60%, or you remember only 60% of what you have learned. But if you revise it on day 1, then again it boosts back to 100% of knowledge. Then again it slowly comes down, then it requires at least 3 days for it to fall back again to 60% of knowledge. And if you revise on the 3rd day, then again it boosts back to 100%. Then again it will fall down, but it will require more time now to come back again to 60%. But again, if you revise it for the 3rd time within a 7 day or on the 6th day, it will again boost back to 100% and it will transform from a working memory into a long-term memory. And this is what is called as spaced repetition. But it has one important challenge, and that challenge is you need to create a system of accountability for your spaced repetition along with devising a plan. This will help you with your revision strategies. The second, active recall. Active recall is forcing your brain actively to recall the information that you know. But before we move into these steps, I'll introduce you to Stephen Koslin. He was a psychologist and a neuroscientist, and he experimented and studied about human learning. And he concluded that human learning has two maxims. The first is think it through, and the second one, he called it make and use associations. Let us come to the first one, think it through. What he means by that is more deeply you think about an idea, the more easy it will be for you to recall it. Actively recalling anything without any help strengthens the neuronal networks in your brain to form a very solid memory. That is why forcing yourselves to recall facts is more beneficial rather than just going back to your book and passively reading whatever you have underlined or whatever you have gone through. Put some pressure on your brain and try to actively recall whatever you might have learned for the first time. This will build your recall process, renewal process, and your memory. The next of Kossel's maxim is make and use associations. Our brain works in a very specific way, guys. We need to understand that in our brain we don't have areas where our information that we are learning sits in an isolated packet. That is why you don't have an area where some things from chemistry will fit in, or something like a corner for your medical science, or a corner for your video games, or the corner for certain important informations. One has to remember, guys, that the information is in the form of loose packets, and all these loose packets get associated into areas that we have, or what are called as association areas. They make a meaningful sense out of information, and this is what our strategy number 3, that is making associations. What we mean by that is connecting whatever you are learning right now with the past knowledge that you have. When you associate your past information or knowledge with your current learning, it forms a strong and a powerful system of learning. And lastly, it is D, that is desirable difficulty. We all love shortcuts, we all love hacks, but this is something which is not desirable as far as building revisions or memory is concerned. Here you need to desire things that are a bit difficult. That means you have to force yourself, even after knowing that something is hard and challenging, but you accept it and you choose it anyway and you do it. That is what is inviting yourself to taking a challenge. And in the end, guys, again remember that learning and memory is not about just storing information in your brain. It is basically about removing that stuff out of your brain. You need to learn to remove it out. Removing it out is what is extremely important. Hope this video has helped you, and hope this will help you in your revisions and your recall strategies and making up your memory for whatever you study, the stuff that you know, the textbooks that you read, and the clinics that you attend. Hope to see you in the next video. Till then, thank you very much.